And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB. They're honoured to be awarded the Best Trade Finance Bank in Africa at the Asian Banker Middle East and Africa Finance Awards 2024. Good evening. Welcome to the programme. I'm Stephen Grootes. Just a note, it is my final show for the year. I will be taking a break and, of course, back with you as business starts going again sort of the second week of January. I'm sure you'll find that's really what most people are doing this kind of weekend. Talking of travelling, and you probably are going to be doing that, preparing to do that, may already be on the way. A statement today from Barbara Creasy, the Minister of Transport, saying she's actually established what she calls a committee of aviation experts to investigate the root cause of the problems affecting air traffic and navigation services. Now, if you live in a smaller town, if you use the air services to a smaller town, think East London, think Mangaung, Bloemfontein, etc., you will probably have been spitting mad at some of the problems that they've had. In some cases, planes can't land, they can't use the automated approach. And at the bottom of it, in every interview that I've heard, 702, Cape Talk, wherever, there's been an official from ATNS sounding very casual and relaxed and saying this problem and that problem. I've heard nowhere in any public forum any sense of accountability or any sense of urgency from ATNS. That may just be my personal view. You may have a very different view. You may work for them. Happy to hear from you. So I must just say, I'm actually quite pleased to see that the Minister has done this. I think this makes sense to me. One of the people involved is an expert from Namibia, for example. I think ran their sort of air navigation services. So what you really want is someone who can actually say, this is the problem. Because the people who run ATNS presumably know what they're doing, are qualified. It's very, very specialized field, very difficult field. It's an internationalized field. So I do have some sympathy with what they've said many times, which is that the people they need are poached by other countries. Sure, that happens. But then you must manage that. There are things you can do. I don't know, base them in Cape Town or something if you need to keep them, whatever it is. But there must be things that you can do to retain staff. So quite pleased to see how that's going to pan out. And let's just see what actually happens over time. I think that's going to be very, very important. Sasfin shares down 4% on the day. And I kind of feel that despite some of the investigations and inquiries, and I'm sure in the end a court case, about this person who I presume is no longer in the country, who used to work for them, who enabled these Forex transactions and then deleted the records of it. So you didn't know where the money had gone, right? I mean, I find this just astonishing. It opens a little door into the sort of deep, dark heart of banks. And I don't mean that in a sort of pejorative way. What I mean is how things are actually done. Who does it? Who authorizes it? Who has access to the records? I mean, without the records, we are all lost. I mean, banking really is records, really. And I just kind of can't help but feel we actually need a little bit more on this. And I do wonder if maybe we will get a bit more about this at some point. And then the Reserve Bank today, nice to end this sort of year in a bit of positive news, saying in the third quarter of the year there were inflows from foreign investors of around 40 billion rand. And there are lots of things to say, and people say it's the coalition. I suppose it is. Just one note from me, though, is that at a time when so much global capital is going to the US, we've actually had commentary on this program from people who are saying, everybody is investing in the US. We were talking yesterday to a market commentator who was making the point that actually the American economy is the one place that looks like it's going through a boom. You can't, and if you invest a rand in the US economy, it'll do very, very well. If you invest it somewhere else, it probably won't do as well, is really what it boils down to. So at a time when the American economy is sucking up capital, good to see that some of that money is still coming here. Plenty on the program, including Christmas parties, luxury property in Mauritius. And good to hear from you too, please, on 011 883 0702, 021 446 0567, and 072 702 1702.
702. Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
A reminder today from the CEO of the Minerals Council South Africa, Mzila Mthenjane, of how the current review of mining regulations could lead to a massive reset of our entire industry. Mining industry, and you've sometimes heard this sort of muttered, once or twice shouted from the rooftops, claiming the current situation and the laws that are being implemented have actually created a situation where mining companies don't feel their rights are protected. The result of that has been what I suppose you could call an investment strike. Many people have called it that. Well, Mzila Mthenjane, the CEO of the Minerals Council South Africa, on the line for you now. Mzila, good evening. Thanks for your time. You suggest the current legal environment and the current situation generally, how the DMRE deals with mining companies, is discouraging investment from the mining industry. You quote other people as saying that. How could this review improve, change the current situation?
Good evening, Stephen, and thank you for having me this evening for this very important conversation. So, I think when you look at the trend in terms of investment in the mining industry, and we also have to be careful that we don't attribute the decline in investment in mining only to the mining legislation. It has been on a downward trend. But there is a role for the legislation in that downward trend in terms of the insecurity of tenure that it has unfortunately given rise to in the minds of potential investors. And that is really the issue that we're talking about, that we're at a point where the review of the MPRDA today provides an opportunity to settle the minds of investors that South Africa is a destination for investment, which will provide security of tenure and returns, not only for investors, but I think returns for everyone in the country.
So the review could go in that direction. It's already been underway, I think, for a year. It is entirely possible it goes in another direction too.
And this is really the aim, when this is what we're thinking when we're writing this article, to just fire a shot, to say, we're at a turning point here where given our need for investment, the president at the SONA earlier this year, after the GNU was established, spoke of the primary and apex goal of economic growth and job creation. So if we're all aligned towards that goal from a private sector and a public sector, then every department in government should be aligned to what is the legislation that is required, what is the policy that is required that will contribute towards stimulating economic growth through investor-friendly investments, because that's what's going to lead to job creation. And if the public sector in the first instance is not thinking that way, then we're not aligned to the apex priority of growing the economy.
Are there specific things that you think need to change, or a specific direction we need to go in? I realize the cadastre is a major issue. I'm going to come to that in a second. But, are there particular things in the regulations that are being reviewed currently that you think could be changed that would lead to a major change? So
we launched a report of the Minerals Policy Review earlier this year, and they're both short, medium, and long-term issues that need to be addressed. And one of the short-term issues is actually just the administration of current applications for prospecting and mining rights. So the capacity and capability within the DMRE is absolutely important. We did an exercise amongst our members, particularly the junior members who are looking at exploration for existing and new commodities, to find out what are their biggest frustrations. And one of those is this concept of competing rights. And what that means is that where you have an existing prospecting or mining right, you then have to find yourself in court having to defend that because somebody else has been granted the same right, or the right to be able to exploit another mineral on your property, and there are no appropriate arrangements for that. So in the short term, that is really a big issue that is threatening the security of tenure. In the short to medium term, I think you mentioned the cadastral system. That's going to be a game changer in terms of really smoothing the whole process of applying as well as approving what you're applying for in terms of prospecting right. And we really are confident in the DMRE that they will deliver on the date of June 2025, because that should play a role in terms of attracting significant investment in exploration. And then in the medium to long term, and this comes back to the review of the MPRDA, bringing back issues or in terms of bringing back the fight on once empowered, always empowered is really not going to be in anyone's favor. We're not saying that as a council we are against empowerment. I think transformation remains an imperative. But there has to be a balance with the capital and the role of capital in as far as investment is concerned. And once in part, always in part, protects those who've invested in mining and who've done empowerment deals. And to then treat empowerment almost as a sausage factory where when the deal has expired or has matured, as a company, then you have to do another deal. That is really the issue that is of huge concern to investors. And that goes a long way towards, unfortunately, diluting and practically destroying the value in investing in mining.
No, sure.
Or any other.
Sure. I mean, to an extent, Mzila, and I'm sorry to personalize this, but the Minister Rinie Boshoff, who sometimes I realize it's maybe not in a hostile relationship with the mining industry, but it sometimes can look a little like that.
Sorry.
So I think we did lose each other. What I'm getting to is how important is the figure of Rinie Boshoff, the mineral resources minister, in all of this? I mean, he oversees this, and it does seem sometimes like he's not a fan of your industry.
So with everything that we have to deal with, it's a leadership challenge, and it comes back to the individual who occupies that role. And I think the challenge is really on both sides of the side of the public sector and the private sector to demonstrate how we are aligning to the priority of economic growth. And so the challenge is for the DMRE minister and his team to demonstrate how is the department positioning itself for the mining industry to contribute significantly to the economy of the country. And we've seen how the mining industry, when it's performing well, it really shoots the lights out in terms of how it does well, not just for those involved in the mining industry, but for everyone in South Africa. And so, I appreciate that we don't want to personalize this, but the way I've kind of, assessed this, that, in my role as the leader in the Minerals Council, I have to do those things. I often say I have to think, say, and do the things that will inspire for the betterment of the industry. And I think every leader is challenged to do that. And that's what I would put forward as a response to your question and inquiry.
Very interesting. Your official position is CEO of the Minerals Council South Africa, Mzila. And I do need to ask you about something that, on your organogram, maybe a little above you, but I'm talking about the president of the council, of your council, Dr. Nambasa Tsengwa. And someone who has a very important day job. She's CEO of Exxaro Resources. But she has been suspended from that position. I realize the board has been very clear. It doesn't yet know. It's investigating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This can all take a little while. Is that affecting her position as president of your council?
So she's approached the board that she does need to focus on addressing the issue at Exxaro and recognizing that, she's president of the Minerals Council as well at the same time. She's just requested for some time out to be able to focus on the issue. And so with that approach, the board then agreed that she be granted that reprieve and time. We don't know how long it's going to take. I think this is a process that Exxaro and the board are managing, as best as they can. And in the meantime, how the Minerals Council will proceed is that it has put in place a caretaker president. So in the organogram, we have a president and 4 vice presidents. And so one of those vice presidents has taken the role of caretaker president in the meantime until the issue is resolved.
Mzila, thank you very much indeed for that clarity. Do appreciate it. Mzila Mthenjane is the CEO of the Minerals Council South Africa. All right, well, confirmation there about several things, including that Dr. Nambasa Tsengwa has asked to step aside for the moment. Also, a very important conversation around what's happening with a review of those regulations. 21 minutes after 6.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
So I don't know if your company had a Christmas party this year, or if you've decided this is something you're never ever going to do. again, or if in fact just maybe a Christmas party's been the making of your team. Suddenly everyone's been working better together because they finally gelled. They started to actually understand each other, and all it took was some champagne and a silly hat. Linda Trim is director at Giant Leap. Linda, good evening. I don't know if it's just my own life experience over the last 6 years. I sort of got the impression maybe Christmas parties were a thing of the past, and then last Friday, driving around Sandton, plenty of evidence that more people were having Christmas parties. Is the Christmas party a thing again?
It's all back. Everyone's back at work, back to partying, back to restaurants. The life of hiding has disappeared.
I know a lot of people who are really worried about Christmas parties. They're worried about things that go wrong. And basically, I think it boils down to one simple thing. What happens when you give people who work together alcohol? Isn't that the real issue? It's all about booze.
I think you're 100% right, and that's our putting proper boundaries and the right kind of party that everybody can be comfortable at. Be you an introvert, an extrovert, that everybody can find their space. You're not forced to be something that you're not, and that people drink out of hand.
I mean, there's surely pluses to doing it. I mean, I remember some Christmas parties when I was a little younger, Linda. Frankly, some of the most important conversations with people I worked with about the company, my industry, I had conversations about personal lives, conversations with people I didn't normally speak to. Those are all important. And I mean, that really is sometimes the magic of a Christmas party. It's why people find them important. Things happen that don't happen elsewhere.
It's the magic of innovation and creation. It's the same way when we design and build offices. We create breakaway spaces so that people can have those conversations with no boundaries or barriers, and that you can speak about your personal lives and something that's so different to work, and learn different things about people that you want to speak to them further about.
Are there particular things you should avoid? And I mean, I would start with allowing anyone to give a speech that's longer than 1 minute.
I think speeches should be banned completely. It should just be letting your hair down, having fun. Everyone should be integrated together so that there's no hierarchy or barriers between people. Obviously, encouraging stuff like shooters and huge amount of alcohol sets up people for failure. So you want to try to protect people from that. But you do want people to have fun and engage and have a wonderful team spirit.
I mean, a lot of people have a big debate. Should it be at the office? Should it be somewhere else?
Definitely, or for me, I think it should be somewhere else, because it takes people out of that environment. So they're not thinking about work at all. The same when you do a strategy session. Most of the time it's out the office at more of an innovative place, or a place where people can feel completely different and enjoy different spaces.
Do you think we're going to see more and more Christmas parties? I mean, you made the point that everyone's back. It does feel like that. I just wonder if maybe it won't be quite the same next year. People will be more used to it.
No, I think we'll see more and more. I think it's been a hard year worldwide for people, and people love the thought of breaking free, and hopefully economically things will be better for people as well, and there'll be a lot more to celebrate. I think people are enjoying spending time again with other people.
Linda Trim, thank you. Director at Giant Leap.
The Money Show.
The Markets.
Zwelakhe Mnguni, Chief Investment Officer at the Benguela Global Fund Managers. Zwelakhe, good evening. I don't know if you've been able to get to the bottom of this, because it had me scratching my head through the afternoon. Wilson Bailey Homes of Con ended the day up, I think, 5.8%, nearly 6%. There's no news about them, no news on SENS, nothing that I could see about the general construction industry either.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen. The news is non-existent. The big thing here is that there's been thin volumes that have been pushing the price higher. And I don't think there's been any major news other than directors trading for the last 2 weeks. But there's nothing else that is material that has come out. So it's been just a question of liquidity.
It's interesting how it can happen sometimes. Sasfin down 4%. The one of the ratings agencies basically suggesting that there's sort of on a downward sort of watch. They've lowered the watch rating. And this is all about the problems they've had with Forex.
True. I think their banking business has kind of brought this to them. So the Forex fines and all the other fines that they were charged with, they seem to be on a negative outlook by CGR. GCR, which is a Moody's affiliate. So there is definitely a negative outlook for the stock.
And then in the US, I mean, the shares, they're up again today, all about artificial intelligence. There was another update, I think it was from Broadcom. But, I mean, the sort of euphoria, I mean, I made the joke earlier that it's almost hallucinations around artificial intelligence. It really is pushing hard.
That AI is the most amazing thing that has happened in the last probably 4 decades. And I think the benefits of that are enormous, and there's going to be a lot of productivity gains that are coming. And I think companies that are positioned to basically produce equipment that supports that kind of trend are actually benefiting. So as you quite correctly point out, this Broadcom was up 21% at one stage today. So it's quite a big wave that is sweeping across the world.
There are lots of different views about this. I mean, I've seen some people who will say this will go on for a very long time. I've heard some people who say it's the dot-com boom all over again. There will be a bust at some point. Which side of that fence are you on for the moment? You're allowed to change your mind later, Zwila.
I'm on the side of saying that it's a long-term game. I definitely think that the stocks may have run ahead, but I mean, if I think about the AI as a productivity enhancer, I think it's a massive benefit. I mean, I am using it, and I see enormous increase in productivity. So there is no way that it could be short term. I don't think we've even scratched the full surface of what could come from this technology.
It's interesting because it's really sucking in global capital to the United States. I mean, the Reserve Bank did confirm today we've actually seen an inflow of over 40 billion rand in the third quarter of the year. That said, it's sucking in capital, but it's not, I mean, you can get exposure to it in South Africa, but you have to work at it a little bit.
That is why we always say that people should consider their allocations into global markets. And I think if one looks at the world currently today, both in terms of the economy and in terms of the technology, I think the U.S. is a major winner for quite some time. They'll be ahead of the other economies. So you'd want to have some exposure to the U.S. So money is being sucked from other regions because this AI is gaining a share of wallet incrementally.
And of course, Donald Trump will come in as well. And I'm sure as he arrives, the inauguration, etc., there'll probably be another sort of mad rush at the time, and then we'll have to see how he governs.
Yeah, he's already made it shown his hand that he's about tariffs and he's about forcing the other countries to deal in the dollar. So I think that we'll see how that plays out. But I think from an economic point of view, they also vulnerable from their ability to actually enforce those tariffs would just translate it into inflation in the US, and it might actually slow them down with that agenda. So I think there's going to be a lot of volatility in 2025. That's what I expect.
Mzila Mthenjane, thanks very much indeed. Chief Investment Officer at Benguela Global Fund Managers. Bringing the time to 6:30.
The Money Show.
The Friday File.
The Friday File.
Well, now 20 minutes to 7 the time. So as you, I hope, go off on a Christmas holiday, if you go home to Limpopo or the Eastern Cape or your partner's family in KwaZulu-Natal or even to Dubai or Bali or Beijing, you may have one of those moments over the holiday where you turn to your partner and you say, love, should we look at buying property here? I mean, should we, maybe do what, the other people have done? And sort of think to ourselves, well, actually, we should do this. How do you decide what to do, where to go, what kind of property to buy? Rinie Boshoff's an experienced real estate project consultant. She actually works particularly in Mauritius. Rinie, good evening. You've been working in the Mauritian market. There's some advantages, of course. It's got a good tax regime. It's pretty close to home. And I should probably mention it's an island, so it's surrounded by beach. I mean, what kind of interest are you seeing in that market?
Hi, Stephen. Yes, so I've been in Mauritius for almost over 8 years, and I've seen quite a good capital growth from property, especially for the resort style and the beachfront properties that is currently very popular. And these are specifically properties that are linked to hotels. So if you buy a property, and you live in it, it's actually quite, you just pack your bags and you come, because the hotels will manage all the maintenance, the cleaning, all of it. So it's a very hassle-free investment. And we see with these kind of properties, when you buy off plan until it's complete built, they've got about a capital growth between 30 to 40%. So, a great investment. And these kind of rentals are quite strong. I mean, normally in your first year you build up a brand, but they can vary anything between 5 to 8% in your third year.
Sure. What's driving that? Are people just looking to spend their money somewhere or somewhere close?
Look, well, the island has limited land left, and also Mauritius, they buy and sell their properties in hard currency. So they trade, because especially they deal with the French market as well. So you can either buy property in dollars or in euros, and that is the currency that is traded worldwide. So when you bring your rands over to Mauritius and you buy property in dollars and rand, your capital growth continues in those hard currencies.
So when people are starting to look for property in Mauritius, what do they typically go for? So yes, they might go for the hotel, the resort accommodation. Are there other options as well, maybe a step below that?
Yes, so one of our most popular investments are for Plan B is to get your permanent residency. And if you want a permanent residency, one has to spend $375,000, and that permanent residency is linked to the property. So as long as you have the property, you have permanent residency, and that permanent residency is for husband and wife and kids under 24. And now they've also introduced that if you want your parents to come as dependents, they have to be financially dependent on you, but you can bring your parents with you as well. So that would be the most popular investment opportunity currently for people who don't necessarily want to live here immediately, but they want a Plan B and they want the permanent residency linked to it as well. And then one day, because the residency can be passed on to the kids, so they always just want to make sure that the kids are have that extra residency in another country.
It's one thing to have that sort of extra residency for a kid. You need more than that for children, I've learned. I presume you also need proper education. And yes, I know people talk about sort of virtual schooling and all the rest. Frankly, in my view, I don't think that necessarily works. Are there those kind of facilities?
Of course. So we do have international Cambridge-based schools here in Mauritius. Mainly it would be in the north, which is the Grand Bay area, and then also in the west coast, which is the Tamarin and Black River area. So those are the two pockets where most of the expats normally live, and we've got good schools in those areas. From a tertiary perspective, we've got Middlesex, we've got, and these are satellite campuses. So you pay Mauritian prices for, universities that is from Australia or from England, etc.
No, sure. The size of the properties that you'd be looking at, obviously relative to the pricing and where it is and location. But if it is a relatively small island and if much of the land has already been sold, I would imagine we're not looking at big properties necessarily. You're not looking at the kind of thing that you might live in if you were living in Blairgowrie.
Well, and that's what Listing Mauritius showed, our viewers. There are such a big difference between the different properties. I would give you an example. A pure investment unit, you get like foot in the door investment unit that you pay, let's say between $150,000 to $250. Those would be from a square meter point of view, that's anything between, let's say, 60 square meters to 80 square meters. Then you get your permanent residency purchase, which is a typical 2-bedroom that is anything between 100 to 150 square meters. And then you get your luxury villas, and that can be a plot size of 2,000 to 5,000 square meters, and a villa can even be between, 300 up to 600 square meters. So you do get those big spacious villas, but again, that comes with a premium price.
I'm sure. I would imagine, though, that there's tight competition for space near a beach, or at least a coastal view. I mean, that's really where the action is.
Yes. So beachfront properties, as a foreigner, you can't just buy any property in Mauritius. You can only buy in dedicated property development schemes. So the beachfront properties, they are most likely going to be on leasehold land, and they would be registered as a ground plus 2 development. So apartments where you will be able to buy an apartment that's on the beach. And those apartments can be anything between a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom or even penthouses. And they are, and in the north, if you look at the landscape of the north is flat. So you have to be on the beach to be able to see the sea. If you're on the west coast, we are quite fortunate. The landscape here is, we've got beautiful mountain views. So we've got elevation here. So you can be on the mountain, on the lateral mountain. You've got then 180-degree sea views, or you can be on the beach and, you can be spoiled. On the mountain, you can own a villa, a double story or 1 level. And on the beach, you will get an apartment.
How have you seen the demand for property from South Africans in Mauritius change over the years? I mean, I presume there are fits and starts, spikes and troughs, all of that. But how's that been going up and down over the last 10 years or so?
Look, maybe it's because I can speak Afrikaans and, English. So I have a lot of South African clients contacting me. And, I do see a demand for clients who is, as you say, it is going through ups and down waves, but I do see a lot of clients wanting to make sure that they get an offshore investment. Those are the people that, for the first-time buyers, they would maybe start buying an investment unit that they can put in a short-term rental. So they would most likely spend under 300,000. So I have a lot of those clients. And then my second category, which is quite popular, is the permanent residency category, people that will spend $375,000. And I must say, a small handful of South Africans still have the typical, like a good budget of, between $2 million and $4 million. So we do get, but we don't get, like 30 of those. We will get about, 5 to 10 buyers per year that would spend that budget over $1.5 or $2 million.
There must be competition in other markets. In other words, people who have the option of buying property in Mauritius must have other options. I can think of Portugal, for example, has or had a similar sort of citizenship or residency scheme. That, of course, came with access to the EU. Who does Mauritius compete with, I suppose, is really my question.
Yeah, most definitely. So people do compare Mauritius with Portugal and the Seychelles, etc. However, if you really look at all the benefits, like the tax advantages in Mauritius, the fact that you get permanent residency in Mauritius, the government is stable, your capital growth is strong. You don't have to have all these other loops that you have to jump through. The permanent residence linked to the property. You don't have to speak French. You don't have to live in Mauritius to still own that permanent residency. And the benefit of Mauritius being a 4-hour flight from South Africa is a great advantage. And that also, I always say, Mauritius is the closest to South African lifestyle you will have outside of South Africa.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Do you find people actually competing for specific properties? A property goes on the market and, people start to compete and price starts to shoot up. It's the kind of thing that happens in the UK, for example.
That actually we see currently now with the rental market. So we actually have a lot more demand for rental. We've got more demand for rental than what we've got for stock. So what that means is it's great, because that means people who still buy these properties will definitely have people that will rent them, because not everyone lives in Mauritius. When they buy a property, they put that property in a rental pool. So we've got a great demand for rental stock at the moment. We don't have enough stock. So for the people out there who's looking for investment, buy property which is easy to rent for foreigners who live here, because Mauritius brought out a visa a while ago during COVID. It's called the Nomads visa, like a premium visa for 1 year that people can live and work abroad, but they can live in Mauritius, like they can work, they still work remotely, let's say in the UK or in South Africa, but they live in Mauritius. They enjoy the lifestyle here, but they need to rent something. So we have great demand for rental property. On the selling part, like an off-plan development, there's not much, negotiation really that's happening on a off-plan development. On a resale, it depends. If you've got a unique property that's on the beach, then people would negotiate on price. But yeah, at the moment, what's hot on the market is the rental stock. Negotiating.
I'm sure. I mean, obviously, competition, and competition from other people. I'm talking from other countries. You spoke about the European market, the French market. There are plenty of people who are looking for that kind of island lifestyle at an affordable price. And in hard currency, or in the dollar, in the US dollar or the euro, the Mauritius is vaguely affordable.
Yes. So especially for the French market, it is very affordable. And I see a lot of South African expats who's been living in the UK for many years that is feeling the crunch now and want to move, not necessarily back to South Africa as their home base, but they are then now coming to Mauritius, make that their home base and still travel back into South Africa. I see that's become quite popular. The French also seem to run away from France, and because they also speak French, Mauritius makes total sense for them because they just feel at home. And I must see the Germans now as well. Mauritius is very popular amongst just German population, and and it's great to see, and that's what makes Mauritius such a melting pot. It's like everyone plugs in from abroad, but they live and enjoy the lifestyle in a harmony. So we really enjoy having different people from different countries here.
Rinie Boshoff, thank you. Real estate project consultant in Mauritius. Well, depending on where you go on holiday, you might spend the time wherever it is and sort of say to your partner, maybe we should invest here. Maybe it'll be in rural KwaZulu-Natal or the Eastern Cape or Limpopo or wherever. Just some thoughts as you head out on your summer holiday.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
Time for the Friday Biz Blitz on The Money Show this evening. You know the number, 011 8830702 021 446 0567. We ask you a question. If you get it right, we move on to the next question. If you get it wrong, we move on to the next caller. First question on the Friday Biz Blitz this evening. Easy Equities is part of a new consortium that wants to buy part of the commercial rights to which rugby team? Easy Equities is part of a new consortium that wants to buy the commercial rights or part of them to which rugby team? Trust me on this. You know the rugby team. 011 8830702 021 446 0567.
The Money Show.
With Stephen Grootes.
The Friday Biz Blitz on The Money Show, 011 8830702 021 446 0567. First question tonight. Easy Equities is part of a new consortium that wants to buy the rights or part of the commercial rights to which rugby team? Easy question to get you started. We've got questions too about a banking deal that happened this week. Also, the Black Business Council and consultancy firms. We'll talk a little bit about Antonio Guterres. And one or two decisions made by publications this week as well. So first question, of course, is Easy Equities as part of a new consortium that wants to buy part of the commercial rights of which rugby team? Easy question to get you started on the Friday Biz Blitz this evening on 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567. So good to hear from you on this. Maybe the question's too easy. Maybe that's really the problem. I mean, it does happen sometimes when people think that the question is too easy. But what for you? So how do you think? What do you think the answer is? So which new consortium they want to buy the rights, the commercial rights of which rugby team? Easy Equities is a part of that, which is the rugby team that they want to buy part of the commercial rights of. Some questions also for you in a little while around one of the big issues around consultancy firms that we've been talking about this week. And of course, there's been huge issues about that this week as well. You might well remember, in fact, 2 conversations, one yesterday and one 3 days ago, about that particular issue. So the question, of course, is Easy Equities is part of a new consortium that wants to buy part of the commercial rights of which rugby team? Amika, hi. Good evening. Which rugby team are we talking about?
Springboks.
It is the Springboks. It's the easiest question in the world, Amika. Okay, here we go. This is a little tougher. Okay, Mpumi Madisa is the CEO of which group that sold its banking unit for 2.8 billion rand to Nigerian-based Access Bank? This was a big story this week. Mpumi Madisa is the CEO of which group that sold its banking unit for 2.8 billion rand to Nigerian-based Access Bank?
Is it Bidvest?
It is Bidvest, Amika. Yes, well done. I thought that was going to be the tough one, actually. Okay, the Black Business Council has called for a complete ban and blacklisting of which consultancy firm?
I don't know that.
Come on, Amika, you sound like a Money Show regular to me. The Black Business The Black Business Council wants which consultancy firm to be banned? They did work for Eskom, they did work for Transnet. Oh, Amika. Sorry?
I don't know. No, I don't know that.
All right. Sorry, Amika. Let's try Letsai and Soshanguva. Says Letsai, hi, do you know the answer?
Mackenzie?
It is Mackenzie, of course. Amika's kicking himself right now. All right, Letsai, this is the easiest question of the lot. Antonio Guterres is the Secretary General of which international organization?
United Nations?
Yes. Okay. And this is the last one that we'll have time for, okay? Time magazine has named whom as its Person of the Year for the second time?
Elon Musk?
Oh, Letsai. I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that, and just think, think a little bit more. Who's the Person of the Year for Time magazine? You're very close, I must just say.
Oh, it's incoming president.
Yes.
Of the USA.
Come on, I need a name. Letsai. Come on.
If I'm on radio. I cannot forget the incoming president in January. Yeah.
Okay, let's say, it's Donald Trump, let's say.
Yes.
Okay. Let's say, thanks very much indeed. Congratulations, winner of the Friday Biz Blitz on The Money Show. Good evening, it's 7 o'clock.